Hello everyone! Tottenham have been genuinely terrible lately. They've set 3 of the lowest XG records in their history, all within just a few matches against rivals Arsenal, Chelsea, and most recently, Fulham, another London club. Absolutely dreadful.
They even nearly lost to Newcastle and were only saved because Romero carried the whole team. Even though I've seen all kinds of demonic tactics from Spurs over the years, Harry Redknapp's fiery football, Andre Villas-Boas's money-throwing chaos, Mourinho and Nuno Espirito Santo's eyesore football, and even Ryan Mason's era, this recent run has been the bleakest I've ever witnessed. After a lucky early season run where they still played poorly but kept winning and even competed for the top spots, Tottenham have now officially dropped like a stone, currently sitting 11th.
With 3 losses and 2 draws in their last 5 terrible matches, Tottenham's form is rock bottom, only slightly better than last play's Wolverhampton. Basically, this whole first part is just for us to complain. To understand the full picture, we need to see what Thomas Frank is actually doing with this team. Thomas Frank likes using, well, a different formation every game. I honestly don't know what his go-to setup is, but 4-2-3-1 seems to be the most common.
Some people might say switching formations like that is tactical flexibility. But to me, flexibility only counts if you win. If you're flexible and still losing to everyone, then what's the point? Especially since he had a very long preseason. We're in match week 14 now, and the tactics still aren't settled. Back to the main issue, his traditional 4-2-3-1 doesn't use inverted fullbacks, nor inside forwards, completely opposite to the previous manager. Tottenham really do love hiring managers who contradict each other.
Anyway, traditional or modern doesn't matter, as long as Frank makes it work and optimizes the players he has. But sadly, he chooses the safest possible personnel. Bentancur is a metronome-type midfielder, and he should be paired with someone who can progress the ball. Bentancur only makes 3.86 progressive passes per 90, 30th percentile. Yet Frank pairs him with João Palhinha, a pure defensive midfielder with just 2.84 progressive passes per 90, 6th percentile, even worse than Bentancur.
So Spurs end up with a pivot that can neither pass nor carry the ball forward. You don't need extra stats to see how bad that is. Back in match week 8, data even showed, when the two start together, Tottenham produce 26% less XT, control the ball less, lose possession more, and concede 31% more XG. If Tottenham lacked personnel, I wouldn't complain.
But Frank has Lucas Bergwall, who is excellent at progressing the ball. Bergwall averages 1.96 progressive carries and 4.35 progressive passes, both higher than the 2 pivots above. If Bergwall is too young, Pape Sarr is also solid. He averages 1.67 progressive carries and 3.18 progressive passes. Frank even tried Bentancur Sarr for a few games, and they had the best central progression of the season. Same with the 4-0 win over Copenhagen, or that near comeback against United, the ball flowed through the middle beautifully.
Yet, against big teams like Chelsea and Arsenal, he got scared and reverted to the safe Palhinha-Bentancur duo. Problem is, the safe option also loses. Failing to progress centrally creates a chain reaction. Less tactical variety, Xavi Simons has to drop deep, you lose both a pivot and your main creator. Basically, the midfield can't advance the ball. Thankfully, in recent matches, he finally seems scared enough to stop using that nuclear pivot, so there's some hope. What about the wings? Also underused. Spurs still have the flanks to progress the ball, but for some reason, Frank doesn't want to use them. Sometimes when watching Spurs, I genuinely want to turn the TV off.
The Udogie Spence Porro problem. Udogie is the best ball-carrying fullback at Spurs, miles better than both Spence and Porro. And yet Frank chooses Spence, the weakest one. In Postecoglou's previous flexible system, Spence benefited from wing overloads, but in the current setup, he's constantly thrown into difficult 1v1 situations he can't handle, so he defaults to the safest option. For example, when Kolo Muani dropped to receive the ball, Spence panicked, turned around, and passed backwards. Look at his passing map versus MU, mostly backwards passes, forward passes rarely successful. Same story versus Arsenal and Chelsea.
Udogie is somewhat understandable, since Spence is in decent form and made the national team. But Odegaard? That's infuriating. He contributes 11.6% of the team's total ball progression, yet Frank pushes Kolo Muani or Bergwall to the left wing for safety. Tottenham have 3 natural wingers, Odegaard, Johnson, Mathys Tel. But instead, Frank plays a striker and a number 8 on the wings? Not to mention the left side trio Udogie, Odegaard, and Xavi Simons is extremely effective. Frank used them to beat Leeds, destroy Copenhagen 4-0, and nearly come back versus United, then stopped using them. Honestly, I'd prefer Postecoglou-style stubbornness at this point. At least it's less frustrating. It's not just tactics, it's also personnel optimization. Nothing complicated, just optimize the squad you already have. But Frank is still fumbling around.
Some say Tottenham have too many injuries, which is true. But the 2 big ones, Kulusevski and Maddison, were already replaced with a 60 million signing, Xavi Simons. Key players like Kudus and Romero are still here,
Solanke's injury is unfortunate, but it only affects the attack. To be fair, there are some bright spots. Xabi Simons originally played LW due to his physique, but he clogged up Spence's space and removed a creator. Frank realized it and moved him back to the middle. Lucas Bergvall was in great form, but didn't fit as a number 10. Frank tested a few matches, saw it didn't work, and dropped the idea. However, with a long preseason to experiment and still no optimal lineup by match week 14, that's genuinely slow progress. Combined with overly safe football, Tottenham aren't improving much. If Thomas Frank keeps playing like this, the team probably won't get relegated and might even scrape enough points to compete for a top spot. But long-term, Spurs need more boldness. This style just feels wrong. What do you guys think? Leave a comment below.